Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Highly anticipated interview that we've been waiting a long time to get. We have today on the show Mario Zelaya. If you know the TikTok phenom, the one who's rattling a lot of feathers in the political realm in Canada, he sounds like a guy I really need to talk to. So, without any further ado, welcome to the Real Pack King Show, ladies and gentlemen. Mario Zelaya, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Pat. I really appreciate it.
Mario, I want to jump right into it without any hesitation. Who pissed you off so bad that now here you are dropping these truth bombs left and right? I got to know.
Honestly, it's the Liberal Party. I mean, that's the short answer of it. It's literally the Liberal Party and what they've done to our country over the last 10 years. I've never been a politics guy. I've never cared for politics. I grew up not knowing anything about it. I grew up not caring about it. I actually used to be a liberal. And it was more so just growing up. We were told by my parents, they helped us kind of come into this country, you vote liberal. And as new immigrants, it's almost like that's the default vote. It's you're voting for liberal. And it's not uncommon. And that's something that I've heard quite commonly from other immigrant groups. It's just the default vote you go for. And, I feel like as though Justin Trudeau shifted the party in such a way that the old, Liberal Party is nothing but a distant memory. And I feel like it has just transformed it to something else that just doesn't resonate with, I think, a lot of Canadians. And I think people are still trying and they're hanging on by a thread for to really support them, but I really think that thread is about to snap, and I think people are really starting to lose their patience with it because they've gone so far to the left that there is no longer a middle ground. And truthfully, I see myself as a middle ground person. I may be described as a far right extremist in some occasions by certain people in the Liberal, but I don't even see myself as that. I truly today, as it stands, I would say I would have to be described as none other than a conservative.
Nice. Well, I agree with you there that they've lost sight of what the Liberal Party is. Because if people do remember, the Conservatives were really the most liberal in their thinking and wanting the best for everybody. And even I find some of the conservative, like the Conservative Party, has changed as well with the goings on within the political theater to kind of coincide and appease to the left side. And in a lot of ways, I find that, both parties have changed over the past decade. Although I do tend to lean more on the conservative side, I do find myself more centralized. But at the same time, I do know the propaganda that the media is doing to myself and everything is making us look like we're these far right extremists and all of this stuff. But really, we're all about facts. We're all about the truth. And we're all about getting the problems corrected that we're doing, that are happening here in Canada. You said you immigrated here. Where'd you immigrate from?
I was born in El Salvador, so we left because of the war. And as most people in the world probably know, kind of the miracle that's happening in El Salvador right now with President Bukele, I'm not the only one that was displaced. Like, we're talking about millions of people who left a war-torn country in the 80s. And it progressively only got worse because once the Civil War ended, those soldiers had nothing to do. They had nothing to rebel against. And so they start forming the gangs. And the gang started in LA. And I lived in East LA when I was about 5-6 years old. That was the first place we moved to. We went from LA to New York, from New York to a shelter home in Toronto. So my first home in Canada was a shelter home in Toronto. I still remember the big open warehouse, the massive beds that were there. I remember, being a 6-year-old, my younger brother learning how to run, and we would play a game of who could kill the most cockroaches. And as kids, it's just a game. As an adults, we think it's disgusting, but that was the norm. And and part of the thing that actually drives me nuts today is the people that helped us, the people that got my parents jobs. It wasn't the government; it was a church. It was a church that helped us. And now, the Liberal Party is actually looking at removing the charitable status of churches and any of these faith-based organizations. And it's not directed only to Christians, it's directed to all. And there's a study that was done, it's called the halo effect. And basically the halo effect was a study done by a think tank that looked at the effects of what these charitable organizations have on society. And basically, the end result was the net positive impact that they have in society is somewhere in between, let's say, $16 billion. But the CRA would only ever be able to collect maybe 3 billion or 4 billion. It's not like it's a mass number that's going to change or reduce our taxes or change any sort of burden. If anything, society would be worse off without them. And honestly, I would say I'm living proof of that. And, while I may have been born in El Salvador, I know nothing else other than Canada. Like, to me, I'm 100% Canadian. My childhood was here. My adult is here. My kids were born here. Like, I'm full-blown 100% Canadian.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Pat King Show. And boy, do I have an offer for you. Are you looking for an online casino to play in Canada? Look no further. PlayNumbers.Game has been in operation for nearly 7 years, and it's now one of the fastest growing online casinos in the country. Why are so many people signing up, you ask? They have daily giveaways right on the site, reward points for every dollar you wager, fast and easy withdrawals, simple sports betting with some of the best odds out there, VIP treatment for every player, no exceptions. And here's the big bonus. Everyone who signs up using my link is automatically entered into a $250 draw every Friday at noon. Ready to test your luck? Sign up now at PlayNumbersGame and see why everyone's talking about it. And ladies and gentlemen, do I have another offer for you? If you use my promo code PATKING and deposit $10, it'll give you automatically 100 free spins. Don't forget, promo code PATKING. Hope to see you there.
That's awesome. And I commend your family for doing that. You're the poster child of Canada immigration, or what we believe that Canada immigration is. So to see you coming up through the ranks of what you've come from, from where you've come from to how you got here, can you speak on your take on the immigration that's in Canada that we're seeing today, presently? Like, what's your take on it? Where do you stand?
I would probably say there isn't a single person in Canada that has gotten more views than I have in relation to how bad immigration is in Canada. Just to kind of give you context, on average, I mean, I've slowed down a bit now since post-election, and pre-election I was making a lot of content, but even now I'm averaging probably close to 50 to 60 million views a month, and I consistently speak out against the immigration policies that we have today. We had such a beautiful system before where we had a point system. People don't realize that I have successful family in El Salvador that wasn't even able to get a visa to come visit us because the government was worried that they were going to stay. These are people who are successful, that's how difficult, that's how our immigration policy used to be. These are, these are family members, no criminal record, no criminal history. We would have to write letters to the embassy of support, like, hey, yeah, we have X amount of money. They have, they ask for a lot of detail because they want to make sure they're getting the best of the best in the country. And while it was difficult for them to visit, look at what society was 15 or so years ago. We didn't have the issues that we have today. And I think the average person doesn't realize how much of an impact immigration has on our society. It impacts our crime. Like, a perfect example, I heard from a whistleblower yesterday that a police officer was injured with an arrest. These two people tried breaking into a Shoppers Drug Mart. They got caught. Cops showed up. They had their guns drawn. These guys don't care. They escaped. They ran, and they finally caught them. But guess what these people? They were here on a temporary visa, and they're repeat offenders. These are people who needed to be deported right then and there. Guess what? They went into jail, and they're probably out today, potentially watching this video, right? Like, it's the craziest concept to me that you can have this type of crime happening right in front of our eyes from people who are here on a temporary visa that are not contributing to our society and, in fact, are raiding us.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that more and more. Like, for me, that's one of my biggest concerns is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what I've gone through, but I spent quite a long time just trying to get bail for my incident that I had in Ottawa. And I spent 150 days in jail because I was deemed a homegrown terrorist. I was deemed, unfit for society, basically, and denied bail on 3 separate occasions. But now I'm seeing these reports and stuff. These guys are coming out. Oh, you're going to get easier bail and a more relaxed sentence because it might mess up your citizenship. I remember Stephen Harper put something in back when just before he was taken out, was that if you did any kind of harm or any kind of bad criminal acts in Canada, you were actually going to be sent home and risk sending 2 generations of your family away. And as soon as Justin Trudeau got in, they scrapped it. And that's where we now see this relaxed immigration where these guys are getting preferential treatment over and above people. And now I'm going to swing back to my thing. Yes, I may have created a protest and I did some protesting and it was uncomfortable or discomforting to the citizens and all that, but I still should have been able to get out on bail. But then right after, these other guys, another gentleman ran over 6 guys and was out the next day. This was in Winnipeg during the Ottawa convoy. And we were blown away at how this happened. So when I initially felt, okay, I'm going to jail. All right, I'll be out on bail 24 hours, or at least by Monday anyway. And then to find out I'm held for 150 days and treated like the worst criminal. I went into maximum security. I was put into 24-hour lockdown. Like I was treated like I had just tried to, take out somebody, and I never did. So, I guess my thing is you're feeling the same way. Like this is insane. What insanity of what's going on here in Canada.
100%. And stories like yours are the perfect example of the 2-tier justice system that exists. And I believe it was yesterday, Michelle Rempel Garner, I hope I didn't butcher her name, I think put a motion basically calling out the 2-tier justice system. And I've been talking about this for a very long time. I did a post on X that basically, looked at, and I gave such ridiculous examples. You have a guy literally with his wang out as a bell worker because he thought one of his customers was attractive. So he just had it out the whole time, and he's talking to her, hitting on her. And guess what? He got probation. He was charged. He was out on bail. He got probation because it might affect his immigration status and his ability to get a citizenship. So he was able to get away with that. Then I give another example of someone who robbed an LCBO. They evaded police. They went against traffic in the 401. They killed a family of 4. They got a 5.5-month sentence. So you're telling me you were in jail for 5 months without any sort of proven charges, and this guy actually killed a family of 4, and then his total time that he did was only 2 weeks longer than the time that you spent in jail? Like, this is not normal, and this does not make any sense whatsoever. A ruling just came out yesterday that the judge deemed a person a significant harm to society, that he is going to repeat this. He's a threat to our society and our way of life. But he was not going to be deported because his wife has ADHD. Like,
his wife has ADHD, so he's not going to be deported?
Correct.
Oh boy.
This is something that I'm actually going to be publishing later today and speaking about this, because it's this type of judgments that give such a sour taste to all Canadians that have lived here, that abided by the rules. But there's this 2-tier system where there's this preferential treatment for these individuals who are not yet citizens, that are here on a temporary basis. It makes absolutely no sense. In Sudbury, there was someone who was drinking and driving. They got into a car accident, and I can't say they injured someone because I can't remember, but I know they were doing 200 kilometers an hour. It was really bad. He was given probation only because the judge didn't want him to be deported. So how on earth, when you look at these things, and these are the things that I just have off the top of my mind. Like, this is with me doing with zero research, me looking at any other cases. I'm not even a politician. I'm just a regular guy that remembers these things. So imagine the magnitude of stories that exist that we're not even hearing about. that is happening right now in our society. It's disgusting.
Well, there's one, a prime example is the one from that coincides with what we did. So you have a group of protesters. Okay, we protest, we get jailed, we go to jail, we go to trial. I technically, on paper, got a 1 year in jail. Okay, there was zero damage to property, zero violence in Ottawa for our protest. You've got these Palestinian protests who damaged vehicles, damaged property, threatened the lives of law enforcement and a bunch. And the same Crown attorney that saw my case allowed them to get off their charges if they wrote a letter apologizing and learning how to protest properly in Canada. And they got off on, and they were charged with violent crimes. And this is a two-tiered system, man. It's insane what we're going through. But the same Crown attorney, he allowed these charges to be stayed on these people. And as long as they wrote a letter of apology and as long as they gave a donation to a community charity. And we weren't even given that option. We were given, no, you're going to jail. You know, how dare you stand up for your rights in Canada? How dare you speak out against immigration in Canada? You know, you get all of these misnomers and labeled from every, you know, far left leaning group out there. They wonder why we get pissed off and why we get mad at this. My biggest thing is yes, there's an absolute hindrance on Canadian socioeconomic systems when it comes down to these, you know, illegal immigrants or refugee status immigrants that are here. I know a lot of people that have come here, worked hard, got their citizenship, even some friends of mine that were from England. So being a Commonwealth country, being from England, it took him 12 years till he got his citizenship, owned his own business, his own welding fabricating facility, and even became a government welding inspector for government projects. But to get his status to come here, being a Commonwealth country, he still had difficulties getting it and getting here. And then they went through a big regime of investigation and background checks and everything of him and make sure that he was okay after already being here for 12 years and being a citizen that was contributing to society, paying his taxes and being just, you know, a good person. I'm here for all the right reasons. I noticed one video that you showed. There was a robbery, and I just want to say, it was your mother that got robbed?
Oh no, that probably would have been someone else. No, that would have been someone else.
We showed a video once
someone else
of an elderly lady getting robbed, and then do you know whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that case? Did those people ever get caught?
Honestly, I don't recall. I don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. And the one thing that I do want to say, and I think you touched on this, and the pattern that I'm seeing is effectively there's a mass weaponization of our judicial system against conservatives. And I'm just going to go out and say it flat out. And I'll tell you why that is. The prosecutors, the attorney general, our minister of justice, all of that, our RCMP, they report into the Liberal Party. People don't realize that. Like, we do not have a separation between the legal system and the ruling class, which is the Liberal Party. So I'm not sure if people understand or realize this, but our Canada Border Services, the RCMP, they report into the Minister of Safety. Who's the Minister of Safety? They're the Liberal. That's an elected official. That is someone that Mark Carney named as the head of the Minister of Safety. So
We call him Gary around here.
Yeah. And so that's a perfect example of, you know, how the judicial system. Well, actually, let's talk about the judicial for a second. That's the enforcement arm. So the judicial system is no different. The law literally states, especially for these protesters, that it comes from the very top of who they get to choose who gets charged for certain things. There's a reason why the Palestinian protesters do not get charged. Those are Liberal voters.
Right.
But when you have, I don't know, a convoy, you have protesters in Ottawa, these aren't our voters. Well, they're not our voters. We're going to hit the hammer. And to me, it's clear as just day for me. Like, it is just so blatantly obvious that you have a Liberal Party, a minister of justice, who's ultimately the one choosing he gets to deliver what kind of justice to. And that's the part that I think is the most disgusting part about just even the way we're set up right now. Like, how is it that they make you stay in jail for 5 months? Meanwhile, you have killers, literally killers, child predators. You have the worst of the worst society, people that I
Yep.
would never trust my children around, being out on bail literally the next day. And you, because you protest and you're not a liberal supporter and they don't believe in that cause, you get to be stuck in there for 5 months. That's what people really need to wake themselves up to, that the justice system that we have favors a particular party and their beliefs, period.
Agreed. And that being a product of it, I can advocate for that exact same. It felt like you're against the club, right? You're against that club and you're not a part of it. So they're going to do everything they can. They're going to do every technique that they know and use to keep you somewhat subdued within the society, because you don't walk their walk. You don't talk their talk. You're not part of their club. I just want to ask, like, when we did this kind of stuff and we do these kind of things and we point this, have you gotten much flack about that? Like what's the temperature around your neck of the woods or in your camp with everything that you've experienced in coming out on all of this?
Honestly, the thing with me is like everything I talk about falls under freedom of speech. And
Fair.
so as soon as you start trying to go after someone for freedom of speech, and frankly speaking, I probably have, from a political standpoint, I probably have the biggest audience in the country. It would be a very dangerous step for them to take. And it would be unwise, and it's also unjust, that I really don't think the Liberal Party would ever cross that. Now, is there another potential for them to take other avenues that I personally have experienced? I think so. I think
I
there's
do.
certain things that have happened to me that are more than just coincidences. I think I've gone a very long time without being audited, and I'm being audited now more than I've ever been in my life.
Oh, me too. I'm getting
Um,
audited as well right now. Same thing.
Yeah, and so there's I think different mechanisms that aren't necessarily I'll say political, but I think too I sit in a different situation than I think most, because I have the ability to fight it with legal means, and I have the financial resources to be able to do so, and I would make a very dangerous and ugly person to go after. And truthfully, all I do is I speak out on news, I speak facts, I try to provide those facts to individuals, and I
Mhm.
try literally educating Canadians on what is happening. And so it's very difficult to really go after someone who is fundamentally providing, I'll say, news with additional commentary. And so I really don't understand how that could ever happen. So it's never even something that's ever crossed my mind. And
Mhm.
as much as I am probably a major thorn on their side, on the Liberal Party side, I really don't think that they will cross that line. But it's maybe they already have, and I just don't know about it.
Who knows? They do have many different tactics that they can use and utilize that they have against all of us. I watch a lot of your videos, Mario, and I am going to say I'm a fan, like where you're getting your facts and all that stuff. The fact checking. So that's how I started out prior to anything Convoy. I was doing investigative journalism, and I had some tools in my toolbox that I utilized on some important topics and to get to fact checks. You're getting whistleblowers. You're getting people coming to you to divulge information to you. I just got to say, keep up the good work, because when you got the whistleblowers coming to you and they're giving you information, you're over the target. But at the same time, your whistleblowers, like, do you know these people? I'm not asking for source names or anything. Do you know these people, or are they just coming out to you?
No, honestly, the majority of what I cover, people just come to me and they tell me stories anonymously, and they're literally telling me specific details, and some of the details that you hear, it's impossible for an average person to know this without actually, say,
Exactly, yeah.
working in an organization or working in a specific department. Certain acronyms that they use. Like, to me, there's soft signals where it is almost like a self fact check. Yes, this person actually did work there, and I could even just do a quick. So in some occasions, a quick Google search on who they are, and I'm able to see that this person's legit. And so, I will blow the whistle on certain things. I think the big bottleneck that I have is I'm incredibly busy, that my inbox probably has, I'm across my social channels, I should say, I probably have close to 3,000 unread messages. And unfortunately, there's going to be some really great gems that I probably may never see. And it really sucks, because I wish I had the time to see every single one and respond to every single person that does outreach and provides me with some source of information. I just, unfortunately, sometimes it ends up being just timing. And I'll give you a perfect example. There was a hospital in London, Ontario, that was taking puppies as young as 10 months old and dogs as old as 3 years old, no older than 3. They were inducing heart attacks on them for 3 hours. Then they would take the heart out of the puppies. I never would have known about this, because the organization that broke it is not a mainstream media. They're called the Investigative Journalism Bureau, and they're based out of the University of Toronto. They do impeccable work, but they don't get the reach or the views that, say, Toronto Sun would get, or National Post, or a mainstream media, or even what I would get. And someone sent me the link to that, and I'm familiar with them because I had spoken to them a long time ago, and I told them, I said, you guys do very interesting stuff, and if you have very interesting things that you think would be a fit, like, email it to me and I'll publish it, because you're basically taking untold stories and blowing the whistle on these things to the public, and that's literally what I talk about online. And so, long story short, someone sent this to me. It wasn't them, it wasn't the IJB, and because I covered that story, I think I got, in Canada alone, probably over 1.5 million views. And I had a clear call to action. Like, this is the Minister of Health for Ontario. You should reach out to your MPP if you think this is equally as disgusting as I do. You should reach out to Doug Ford. I think within 2 days they stopped it. Doug Ford put out a statement saying, we're closing this down, this is inhumane, and we're putting a stop to it. And this had been going on for quite some time. And so, to me, this is the type of value that I enjoy doing. Like, I enjoy putting an end to injustices, because to me that's not right. Like, I'm a dog owner myself, and even if you're not, like, to be able to torture these animals, and everyone, I think, in some way, shape, or form, either has a puppy or knows someone who has a puppy or loves them. Like, I've never really come across to someone just, I hate dogs, right? And dogs are so innocent and pure, and really, this was one of those scenarios that I thought there was significant value to be done, and it was one of those things that felt really good.
Well, that's a fantastic example of when you put your mind to something, you can get it done. So I commend you on that. And yeah, I've met not even a handful, maybe 3 people in my whole entire life that don't like dogs, and say right out the bat they don't like dogs. And yeah, I don't talk to them. Anybody who doesn't like dogs, there's something wrong with them, because dogs love everybody. So I wanted to ask, like, you're getting bigger as you go. Your fact checking is phenomenal. Your work is impeccable. You ever thought about getting your own show, like kind of like this podcast, where you get on? I've seen you on a few other people's podcasts, and I'm just wondering, you'd ever want to do a show?
I get asked that a lot, and unfortunately, it's for me, it's a lack of time, and as you know, and I appreciate your patience. Like, I was slow in responding. I get delayed. I get distracted, and it's truthfully, it's because I own a lot of businesses. I have a lot of employees. I have a lot of staff.
Right.
I have 3 kids. I have a wife. Like, the videos that I make, people don't realize that I spend no more than, in certain days, 30 minutes to maybe an hour at most. And so when I do my reading, I'll be like, holy crap, like, that's kind of messed up. Screenshot, screenshot, screenshot. And then it's like, wait, and then I'll literally say, okay, you know what? This reminds me of this other thing. So I'm going to research here, research there. Yep, screenshot, screenshot. And then there's my video, and I pump it out in like 2-3 minutes. And so that's part of why I only do short format videos and short format content. I actually don't do many interviews and podcasts, and it's because I just lack a lot of time. And that's kind of the big function that kind of gets in the way from me being able to do it. And just because I have just a lot going on right now and a lot of kind of just on my plate, it's not something I can fully devote my time to. And I feel as though I'm doing what I can with the time constraints that I have, and I'm somewhat relatively happy with the views and the outcomes, and the positive change that I think I'm doing on society.
Well, the information that you're bringing out, everybody talks about you, so I really appreciate you making the time and effort to come on here and giving us the opportunity to hear your story and what you're doing. But the information that we get, like I did the same thing, like you said, when you're researching a topic and you're going through it, and then wait, that looks like something over here, and then you pull it out, and then trying to piece that whole story together. Back in the day when I was doing investigative journalism, I was trying to get that to a media agency, and then getting on top of their guys is like, hey man, here's the story, here's all the pieces, here's everything. That's what brought me to where I'm at today, where I started doing a podcast. Prior to the convoy and all that stuff, I was doing all of that, all of my own podcasts and stuff. But it was because none of the journalists would pick up the stories. And yes, I see your content and I see what you're doing. I see all the information you're putting out there. And it just goes to show me, it cements it for me that the media does not give a shit about any of the information that's out there unless it's spoon-fed to them by the Liberal government and told to speak on it. Because the stuff that you're talking, what you're bringing up, the stuff that I had brought up in the past, and the information, that stuff is major mainstream media topics. These are media topics that need to be discussed and need to have those tough questions asked. And that's what media does. So seeing as you, myself, a handful of others that are out there, maybe we should start our own media agency, our own news broadcast, our own Live at 5, maybe. I don't know.
Well,
you ever
I mean,
thought about going into journalism or politics or anything like that?
well, with the journalism, I feel like this potentially is part of the future of it. And I think, the fact that I'm able to get this information, I do it for fun. I purposely turn down sponsorship. And so, I've had a lot of sponsorship requests in the past because of my views. I purposely turn it down because I think there's something to be said about that. I'm not in it for money. I'm literally just doing it for change. I don't need the money, and I don't care
Absolutely.
about it. And I think that adds a certain authenticity to what I do, because that's my only goal, and that's ever only been my goal, was to change and to educate people, because education is I think the biggest fundamental way we get change in our country. And the
Well,
amount of messages
they say knowledge is power, right?
yeah, and truthfully, I get countless messages of, my whole family was liberal, like they've always been liberal. And I started sending him your videos. He's like, they're full blown conservative now. They didn't realize they were, and they agree with everything you say, but they more align with conservatives. And I think, to me, the end goal is to basically have a country like what we had pre-Trudeau. Like if you look at the Harper era, we had surpluses, we had
We did.
lowering crime, life was affordable. Like I can comfortably say, like going back during those times, I never realized how good we had it. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like I woke up, 3 years ago, like post COVID, and it's like, we are totally screwed. What happened? And it's
Yeah.
almost like this concept of a slow creep that just kind of happened. And it dawned on me, and it's like, wait a second, why am I putting Durafilm on my windows? Why am I having to protect my home from intruders? Why am I having to think about crime? Like I can no longer drive out, certain vehicles that I used to have. There's too much risk. Like I would never take, a certain vehicle to Toronto ever. I would never take it through Peel. And there's things that I think about now that never would have crossed my mind before. And it's just that the country has just monumentally become a massive disaster. Unemployment rates are getting much higher. They're reaching record levels for the youth. That is a huge, huge indication of a massive problem and an underlying issue, because if the youth are heavily unemployed, that means that older people who should have, I'll say, stable like careers and jobs, don't have it, and they're picking up jobs that are traditionally meant for younger generations. And what I mean by that is I used to, working at, McDonald's, working at Wendy's, working at Tim Hortons. Like, you're no longer seeing these kind of kids that are working there. It's adults and it's immigrants, and people are using this LMIA scam to basically get cheap subsidized labor from overseas.
Yes, yeah. That's that whole government institutional program that allows them to the employer only is responsible for up to 25% of the wage, and the government will reimburse the employer or the employee the 75% difference. I don't know if that's the exact statistic, but we'll just use 75-25 for today. But yeah, the government subsidizes the employer for the wage, so it incentivizes people to hire. And I had another gentleman on the show by the name of Elliot Daniel, who's utilized that exact program. And my own children, they struggle to find a job. My one son works 2 jobs. He's 17 years old. He works 2 jobs just to make ends meet for himself. He hasn't even hit the real world yet. Now we've got, a retirement community, age demographic of people. Then you've got the younger generation of youth that are coming in. It's like they're targeting 2 ends of Canadians, while in the middle they're filling it up with, and I'll say it, with these refugees and foreign workers and illegal workers that are coming to Canada and are benefiting off our socioeconomic systems, along with the programs, the employers. From an employee or from an employer standpoint, I get it. Times are tough. Big bad orange man bad, and this tariffs are struggling on your company. You need to make profit to show that you're staying ahead of the game. I get it. Even Elliot, this gentleman that we interviewed on the show, he even said it. It's a no-brainer for an employers to do that. But what would you suggest? Would you suggest that employers boycott these programs and get it back to Canadians, or you got any suggestions that would benefit us?
Well, here's what I've seen and what I've been told from a lot of whistleblowers is the majority of the jobs that are out there that you see on job postings, like, you'll see someone to be a restaurant manager, and being this manager at a restaurant pays $120,000. You know how many people who would take that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, a 6-figure job being a restaurant manager, no problem, could be filled easily. But they will tell the government, look, we couldn't fulfill the job. And because we can't fulfill the job, we need to be a part of the LMI program. So we need foreign workers. We need someone that we can get for cheap, and we need to get subsidized. And that's how they get subsidized. They're able to basically pay below minimum wage. And there's people who have been charged for basically running what is ultimately human trafficking. And that's what this program fundamentally allows. It's been a complete and utter disaster. And so the government, in a way, is subsidizing and allowing this to happen underneath underneath us all. And then what it does is it ultimately hurts Canadians who cannot get jobs at these facilities, because they would love to earn 6 figures. And ultimately, to me, is like, you need to support companies that hire Canadian workers, that hire Canadians, that are not participating in these programs, because that to me is like the ultimate form of making things right, because the government clearly won't. They absolutely love this program, and they think this is the end all be all. I've never once have gone through that program. I have a company called Bad Axe Throwing, and a perfect example, Bad Axe in Ottawa. We've been there for 10 years, and we're going to be celebrating our 10-year anniversary in a week. And we've never once hired these do you have any idea how much my staff makes with tips? Like, I've had part-time workers make more than $50,000 a year working
Wow.
part-time. They get paid well, they do tips, but the problem isn't necessarily the labor costs are much higher. It's volumes have gone down altogether. We always actually, let me rephrase that. I always saw Bad Axe Throwing as the canary in the coal mine, because the thing with Bad Axe is it is luxury and it's entertainment. Like, people need to eat. They don't need to throw axes. People, need to have a job, pay their rent, and pay their car payments. They don't need to go axe throwing. And the amount of volume that we've seen people decline in our space has gone down significantly. We were much busier just after COVID than we are today. Inflation has absolutely decimated the economy because people have less money in general. And we see that ourselves through our revenues. And so it has absolutely nothing to do with, how much I pay my staff. It has everything to do with what the Liberal Party has actually done to the economy, how they have not invested, our low growth in GDP per capita. I think in the past 10 years, I think we actually grew, once you factor inflation, we grew 0.5%.
Yeah.
So we've grown less than 1% in less than a decade. And it is a monumental error and a mistake. And Mark Carney, people don't realize he's making it worse. The worst tax we have, it wasn't the carbon tax. It's not even income tax, if you can believe it. It's not luxury tax. The worst tax that exists on any society, period, is inflation. Once inflation happens, think of it as a one-time tax on your savings, on everything that you have. It's done for good. It's not even a percentage. It's a percentage across the board of everything, off of your paycheck, off what you earn, off of what you own. It is done. And that's the dangerous thing that we face with Mark Carney, because the one reminder that I have too is you got to keep in mind Justin Trudeau accumulated more debt than every single prime minister combined. Mark Carney is on pace to outdo what Justin Trudeau did. Spending means inflation. Inflation means taxes. You have less money, and it really sucks.
It's the only way to recoup. You have
to
to tax your citizens in order to recoup your losses.
Yeah, correct. And it ends up being catastrophic. And so, that business has heavily suffered, and it has nothing to do with, operations efficiencies. Like I would say, when it comes to operating companies and stuff like that, I don't think there's anyone that can operate it more lean and more efficient than I do. I am absolutely phenomenal, and I'm not just saying it, but I'm phenomenal at optimizing any organization in any industry. I know what I do, and I do it extremely well, and I know how to run lean organizations, and I know how to make them massive, and I know how to scale them very quickly and very efficiently. It has nothing to do with our operations. This is all a macroeconomic issue, and it's all been driven by one party, and it's the party that's been in power for over the last decade.
Yeah, and as you look at it, we can sit here and weigh out every option, but what is the only one deciding factor that's been the most impactful in Canada over the last 15 years? We can always point to one way. And I'm a very firm believer in system cause and analysis techniques, which is finding the root causes of issues within an employee business, or and what is the number one cause of the incident that you're having. And everything keeps bringing me back to the government, keeps bringing me back to the Liberal Party, keeps bringing me back to mismanagement of Canada. We have the worst management team in Canadian history for the last 15 years, and everybody thinks, oh no, let's just get Gardy back in there. It's okay, he's good, man. This guy's going to be fine. Not knowing or remembering like his past, and then when being told of his past, even in other places such as Britain and what he's done over there, they're just, nobody gives a shit. It's like Canada is a walking pack of ostriches, and the sand is moving. So their heads are staying in the sand, and they're still moving down the road. What do you think? Where do you see Canada going after all of this? Being a business guy, being an employer, where do you see us heading down the road? And then let's say 5 years, where are we going to be?
Well, here's what I think. And, people see Mark Carney. He used to be the head of the Bank of Canada, Bank of England. He's got his PhD. OMG, he's going to come to the rescue. I have met, dealt, and worked with people much smarter than Mark Carney. And what people don't realize is a PhD doesn't give you some sort of a hall pass of this is the most intelligent human being.
Something told me when I was in university, even the lowest guy on the dean's list still can be called a doctor.
Yeah, yes, and 100%, and that's not a knock on people who have PhDs, because honestly, like there's people who have PhDs that are on a whole different level and that are very good at that one specific thing that they do, and I think there's a different, and people need to understand that there's levels to this, like there's complete levels to it, and you got to understand, Mark Carney has always operated under the confines of a corporate world. He, was at Goldman and Sachs. He was always corporate with these large budgets. He has never known what it's like to start with absolutely nothing, work a business and grow it from absolutely nothing, not because of the connections I know, not because, my friend is this billionaire, I can get this investor, I know this investor, and I know this person, and they're all going to invest, or, I'm going to be a chairman, of Brookfield, and, through my connections, through Bank of England, through the Bank of Canada, I'm going to be able to do deal. That is what I would say corporate wealth. And there's different types of wealth. The
Right.
wealth that and truthfully, and I'll be frank, Mark Carney isn't that wealthy in the grand scheme of things. The wealthy people that I actually, I would say, deserve more credit than they get hate is actually billionaires, because a lot of these billionaires, people don't realize the stories that a lot of them have. It's not inherited. These people, like Jeff Bezos, started literally from his garage.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like every single entrepreneur has a story, from the founder of Nike to the founder of Home Depot. Like, these are guys that were grinders. And I don't care if they're rich. Good for them. I don't care if Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. I'm not the one going out there, let's tax him. I think we can all learn from him. Like, I think we can actually look at people like that and say, you know what? Like, he's very good at what he does. And Mark Carney, I think, was probably good while he was at Goldman Sachs, and maybe he was good as a chair of Brookfield, but it doesn't make him a good politician, and it
Right.
doesn't make him clearly a good negotiator. Like, it's been over 50 days since he's spoken with Donald Trump. They're being completely ignored. I think Jasmine Lane interviewed the ambassador to the U.S. Embassy here in Canada, and he literally was like, Canada is putting Kuzma at risk. Canada went over the board. He's like, we're not running any tariffs on Kuzma items. We excluded anything that's included in Kuzma. I'm like, you guys are charging tariffs to U.S. businesses on Kuzma items. You're escalating things. You're not working and operating in good faith. And this comes down to leadership style. And I really don't think, well, Mark Carney may be what I'll call a high performer. I frankly don't think he's very highly intelligent, to be honest. And I don't think he's well suited for the job.
I don't think so either. I think he's just a puppet put in a position. So I'll give you a little quick one. I traveled to Montreux, Switzerland back in 2019, and I always plug this. And I went to a Bilderberg conference where all these elite bankers are at, and they're talking and discussing world politics. And at the time, the topics were AI, the weaponization of social media, and China. I didn't even know who Mark Carney was. And he was going on to one of these this boat in the middle of Lake Geneva and being in part of this big talk with all these world elites. And then he's being brought in. We heard rumor of him 2 years before he came over that he was going to be the new predecessor to Justin Trudeau if Justin Trudeau was ever to lose his seat within the Liberal Party. And then sure as shit, I see it. I'm like, holy crap, that's the same guy. And I look back through my footage from when I was in Switzerland, and here he is hobsnobbing and shaking hands with Lord Adonis and a bunch of other Secretary General of NATO and all of these things. And I find out, okay, this guy is coming into Canada, and he was there. We all know what goes on in these things. This isn't good for Canada. First and foremost, this isn't good. Then we find out, back check, that he was in charge of the Stripe company, who was able to get all of our bank accounts and was able to freeze our bank accounts. Then we get, during the convoy and stuff, we find out that it was his recommendation to start freezing bank accounts, and Justin followed suit. And then we find out that he was, we didn't find out, but for those viewers that aren't familiar, or those international viewers that aren't up to date on Canadian politics and stuff, we find out that he was Justin's advisor. And throughout all of this, and we've watched the worst management team in Canadian history, and here we come back to system cause and analysis, the root cause of a problem. We're finding out that Mark Carney is deeply embedded into that root cause of the problem. And now you're putting him into the position where the policymaker is now the policy giver as well. So he's able to stroke both sides of the hand now. And that in itself is like the conflict of interest with his involvements with Brookfield Asset Management, let alone his ties to everybody now, being the policy maker and the policy giver, that's a conflict of interest now, if you ask me. We're seeing this across Canada as I would say, for me, there's no other path but downhill. when it comes to this, because this guy is coming over, he's doing, and as much as we want to say the evil, the evil man behind the curtain, he's doing their work in order to, what's the end game? What are they trying to do? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen to Canada? That's like after this aftermath. What do you think is going to happen?
Honestly, it's very hard to say, but I think honestly, I can see within 2 to 3 years max, I think we're going to have a conservative majority government. And the only reason I think that is, I think Canada is going to fall so hard. Unfortunately, under Mark Carney, I think we're going to have a mother of all recessions. We're seeing a housing crash bigger than what we've had in the 90s. I don't think he's the person that was meant to ever negotiate truly with Donald Trump. I think his tactic and style of ignore and maybe the boogeyman's going to go away. It's not going to be effective. We're going to see a massive rise in unemployment, and we're going to see the continued mass immigration. And I think I think immigration is probably going to be one of the biggest issues, or it will become one of the biggest issues in the next upcoming election, whenever that may be, because I think there's a reason why they're hiding the immigration data. They actually haven't published it, and so there's
that $1.1 billion expenditure that they're not accounting for of all the illegal immigrants in the hotels and stuff. Like,
yes, and there's also there's 500,000 undocumented residents in Canada, and a part of me thinks that the reason they're not releasing the data from March to today is, I have a feeling we got an influx from the US because of Donald Trump's basically deportations. And I think we had a lot of people come illegally through the border. The border was never fully secured on our end. I think Rebel News did a phenomenal job in a particular area where they literally found all these IDs just being dropped and left behind at the border, so then they could just claim asylum. My name is Bob and I'm 20 years old. Meanwhile, it's a 40-year-old man with a criminal history. And so they're coming into our country. And so I think there's some scary things that are going to be happening. I think Mark Carney is going to try his best to curb them. I think he's finally realizing how bad crime has gotten, that I think they're going to be forced, thanks to the public and the Conservative Party, for putting pressure on them. But I think they're probably going to start making changes to the criminal code, so it's not a catch and release. I don't think it's going to be as aggressive or as effective as what a Conservative Party would do. But I hate to say it, but I think the next year to year and a half are going to be absolutely brutal for Canada. And I think things are going to get very ugly, very bad. And I think the Liberal voters are going to wake up and realize that they made a huge mistake. And I'm generally good at seeing trends and patterns, and this is where I see things trending towards. Like, it unfortunately, this next year and a half is going to be very, very hard for Canadians. Mark Carney's not going to have the answer, and ultimately people are going to wake up and realize that the Conservative Party is the party of change, and it's the party for the people.
When we see our political theater, I call it a theater because it seems like it's watching a comedy, a drama / romance, like the way they have their little relationships in Ottawa. But I agree. I have to agree with you. I don't want to agree with you though. I have to agree with you though, because like you said, trends and patterns, you can see it. We are going downhill. I seen the same concept when it comes to far left leaning, far right leaning. We've leaned so far left that the pendulum has no other choice but to swing so far right. And that kind of in itself, it scares me, because I do know a lot of the extremism that they are labeling on conservative people. Conservatives will get pissed off enough that they'll put matter into their own hands and they'll try and fix it and take care of it, because we obviously see the issues with Mark Carney, with the 95% of his cabinet is Justin Trudeau's former cabinet, and we're just going down that spiraling water spout where we're all going to end up in the sewers here very soon. But I see we need to somehow get it back to center, and we need to somehow get the left. And I hate even putting a left and a right on it. That's, to me, I hate that. We just need Canadians to come together and understand that your way never worked, our way never worked, and we need to totally reconstruct this whole political theater that we have, that's Ottawa. And I think for my suggestion, as people are going to come down on me, I don't care. I like a 2-tier electoral house, like Republic or Democrat, like they have in the States. I like a constitution that would be like the Americans have, that is for the people, by the people. I think Section 1 and Section 33 of the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms should be eradicated, and that should be amended immediately, because it's giving the government too much overreach and too much political power over the citizens of Canada, that we can't even fundamentally invoke the change that we need to have here, because the government will step on our toes every time. Now, if the left could agree, I know the right would agree, that we need to get back to the table and get this country straightened up. I think our borders should be locked down for about 5 years. And I think we should start cleaning up the backyard that is our Canada before we start going and fixing and cleaning up other people's messes. Because after 10, 15 years of this bad, piss poor management team that we have in Ottawa, I think at this point, we need a drastic overhaul of our government electoral system. I don't know. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Well, honestly, I can't say I'm too savvy enough on the subject to have a concrete opinion that I think I could vocalize in
That's
a
fair.
concise and in a clear manner. But what I will say, and what I do agree with you on, is I think everyone needs to go back to the middle. And I feel like I never left. Like, my views, I just see them as logical. I don't see them as right. I don't see that, I'm not calling for less rights for anyone on the left. Like, the things I
No.
talk about, immigration, you look at crime, you look at, economic policy. And truthfully, I'm a big believer of, we need to stop giving away our taxpayer money to other countries. What other countries do it to us? What other countries tax their citizens so they can give billions of dollars to Canada? None. I always give this analogy, and I will always stick by it. Like, let's assume for a second, you and I, Pat, we've been best friends for, let's say 20, 30 years, and every single year I get you a Christmas present. But you know what? I'm borderline bankrupt. I have the most debt I've ever had in my entire life. I'm about to lose my house. I'm about to lose my car. I'm about to lose my livelihood. What sort of expectation, or what would it say about you to have the expectation from me to give you gifts and continue giving gifts when I can't afford it? It's not fair, and it's not right. And no country should be looking at Canada as the money pinata that is going to be the gift that keeps on giving at our expense. It makes
Right.
absolutely no sense for you and I, and people who are working for minimum wage, to have their taxes go to a country to fund wars that have nothing to do with us, to fund issues that don't involve us. Like, I don't need to be
$50
paying
million for condoms in Sudan. Like,
yes,
Like-
or the $28 million teaching people not to poop on their own beaches. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not our problem to tackle. And that's not
Yeah.
for us to be doing gender studies in the Philippines or in Asia. Like, I don't care for any of that. And the only thing I care for is reducing the amount of corporate welfare, the amount of money that goes overseas, and keeping that money helping Canadians. Like, our tax dollars should be for us and us only, and no one else. And that, to me, is the biggest mindset shift that I think needs to happen. And that's the only way we'll get our deficits under control and actually lower our taxes so we can actually afford to live again. Because this cannot go on. There's a concept in economics called the Laffer curve. And the Laffer curve looks like this upside down U. It kind of looks like this. So the idea is, you're going to reach a point where you tax citizens too much, that productivity starts going down. That's where we are in the Laffer curve. And so the idea is, there's an optimal point where you can keep increasing taxes. So let's say we start off low, you can still keep going, and it's not going to affect productivity at all. But once you hit to a certain spot, where you overtax your citizens, and then they have to pay taxes on top of, carbon taxes or on top of other taxes using their after-tax dollars,
Yeah.
then you start seeing a productivity shift where productivity starts going downward. And we see that, I believe, through a form of a brain drain, which is happening in our country. And our GDP per capita has gone down. And it's not necessarily that, the person at McDonald's is now making, $5 an hour instead of 10. That's not the way it works. The reason GDP per capita is going down is because our high performers, the smartest, the wealthiest people, they're just straight up leaving, because those people who are incredibly uh, wealthy, intelligent, that bring jobs, that are entrepreneurs, that are high performers, they're just saying, F this. Why do I need to tolerate this? I'm just going to go to the States, make twice as much money, or maybe even 50% more just based on the currency itself. I'm going to pay less taxes. I'll live in Florida, no state taxes. I'm out. And that's what we have happening right now. We have the biggest brain drain we've seen. And I think the fundamental cause of it is because we're past that point in the Laffer curve.
Yeah, we've seen that in Alberta. So I come from Alberta. I'm in Montreal now, but I lived in Alberta the last 30 years. I worked in the industry. I've seen it so many times. Every time there was a regime change, and especially the last one with Trudeau coming in, we watched corporation after corporation after corporation just duck down over the border and set up shop down south just because of that. And these guys know 5 years in advance, of what's coming down. They don't think in terms like the average person, 24 hours a day, 1 week at a time kind of thing. These guys are years in advance when it comes to projections. So when these guys started to duck out, big, and I'm talking big, major oil and gas execs, corporations are taking off, we know there's something wrong. And Alberta started to scream it out a lot sooner than the rest of the provinces. But now you're starting to see the rest of the provinces, they're suffering, they're feeling it, they're feeling the pinch now, the increased amounts of over immigration, the job losses, all of that, the fundamental, livelihoods of everybody in this country, how we are to survive. There's got to be a drastic change. And I agree with you. The brain drain. You're absolutely right. We're losing our top businesses. We're losing our top key performers, like you said, that actually produce and give back to the country. If only we could retain them and keep them present. I don't know. I don't have the ability of doing that. I'm thinking maybe if somebody has a better idea out there, they're still in the, they're still in the bushes right now. We're trying to get them to come out of the bushes. Anybody out there, if you have any good ideas on how we can get us through this so we don't suffer too much. I appreciate that exact. You're pretty smart when it comes to that. So I like the fact that you're business savvy and you know what needs to be fixed. When you started doing all of this stuff and your videos started going viral and all of that kind of stuff, what is your number one, if not your number one favorite, or number one highest viewed podcast, like show, like clip? Which one stands out to you the most that you've done that made such a significant impact to the rest of the population?
Honestly, when it comes to, and I'll answer it in a concise manner. The most viewed video I ever had actually nothing to do with politics, and it was on my first account on TikTok before it got banned, and it was an issue that I had with Tesla. And long story short, Tesla had a signal that went out to headquarters, didn't go out to me, that effectively said, there's something wrong with your battery pack, and there was water leaking in the battery. That video alone got nearly 20 million views. It got featured all around the world. Like, you can just Google my name, Mario Zelaya Tesla, and you'll see the story. And I mean, we're talking about literally every major outlet, and everyone knows how vocal Elon Musk is on Tesla and any issues. That's the only time he did not tweet or say anything about that at all, because he knew what I knew, and he knew he had a massive problem, and that problem was one of those things that could really cost Tesla in the billions of dollars, because I really do believe they should have had a mass recall. And I explained it to people, and they made a series of videos. And so that's when I think that's how things really started going for me, and then I just started talking about business. But truthfully, and the reason I'm telling you that is I want to be transparent about kind of the views and kind of my background and certain videos that went viral.
Yep.
There's the videos in terms of politics. I actually don't know because I don't look at my views on individual videos. I don't track that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And uh, uh, the only reason I know what my viewership is on a monthly basis was because I think I checked it over a month ago, and the last time I checked it was maybe 3 months before that. Like I don't check for views. What I do is I make a video, I post it, and then I upload it, to TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, and I don't look at it again. And if by chance, there's something where I think I could get more information from people that I didn't know about the video, because let's say a whistleblower said X, and then in the
Mm.
comments someone says Y, and it's like, holy crap, I didn't know that, and the public didn't know that. I might then make a follow-up video, but I honestly don't know. I would probably say, like, there's videos like the dog example that I gave you that I think I'm the most proud of. I don't consider that a viral video, because to me a viral video is something like where just one video will get like over 1 million or 2 million views. I honestly don't know what that could be over the course of the last 8-9 months, to be honest, maybe even a
Well,
year.
your video on getting fines hiking's got over 300,000.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I didn't know
I'm
that.
like I said, your reach is incredible. I've been struggling for a reach like that for years because I've been talking the same stuff that you guys have brought up. I've brought up the facts. I've brought up the whistleblowers. I've brought all of this up. So it's, to me, guys like yourself is a breath of fresh air for me, because I felt alone a lot of the times for a long time. And I got product of gang stalking, your audit yourself as well, things like that. Criminally harassed by the law enforcement out west. It's the RCMP, so they're pretty much untouchable out there. And when you would bring that up and you discuss that to people, people would be like, yeah, no, it doesn't happen. So now I felt kind of isolated, to where now, like you said, post COVID, people are starting to be like, whoa, wait, what happened? Where are we at? And people are starting to talk. So I commend you for coming out and speaking up on that. And I want to, from one truth fact checker to another, man, you're doing a bang up job. I really appreciate all your work, and I know everybody out there is appreciating your work and all the stuff that you're doing. My one last final question for you that I've got, and I just wanted it to be kind of, do you see, and I'll be, do you see yourself going into politics at all?
I get asked that a lot on comments privately. I've had members of parliament ask me that. I've had
Oh,
candidates ask me that. Yeah, I've been asked quite a bit, and it's crossed my mind.
okay,
I will say it has crossed my mind, more so post the election with Pierre Poilievre.
right,
And I say it's probably more so in the last couple of months that I have put more, weight into the idea. If you asked me a year ago, I'd be like, God, no.
right.
And truthfully, and I think it's worthwhile kind of putting it forward to people. Um, I really don't think politics is something people should necessarily aspire to. To be honest, I think part of it is it's a really thankless job. Um, the, the difficulty of it too is you're under such mass public scrutiny, and the upside that you get isn't that big. And I know I'm going to get probably a lot of hate for saying this, but the salaries that they earn, to me, that's not material or significant for the amount of obsessive work that I would engage myself in. When I, launch companies, and I own, I think close to a dozen of them. I'm looking for ROI, and to me, the ROI from getting into politics right now has become about saving Canada for my kids. And the ROI is no longer about the return on investment for money, it's the return on investment for change. And so that's part of the reason. And I've hit a point now in my life where, the money, it's completely immaterial. It doesn't change my lifestyle. You give me 100 million today, I'm still living in the same house, I live the exact same lifestyle. It does nothing for me. And so, being able to be at that point in my life, and realizing how bad things are getting and how bad things have gotten, I'm seriously starting to consider it much more. I think there's a lot of encouragement for that. And I think there is also potentially an opportunity to have someone that I think, speaks very factually and speaks very concisely and speaks in terms that I think Canadians will understand. And I think that's very important for for politicians to really to be able to just, relay information in terms that everyone could understand. Because, growing up, I mean, I don't want to, pat myself on the back, but the amount of people who are like 17, 18 years old that come up to me being like, bro, I follow you. Like, yo, can we get a picture? Can I get a picture? And it's like, man, these guys are kids.
Yeah.
Like, how is it like, I had a kid who was 12 years old that wanted to take a picture of me because he follows me on TikTok. He's 12. And so I feel as though, part of what I've done is, in a way, I think I've made politics cool again, if you will, because it's reaching an audience and a demographic where they would never think about it. I mean, I was 30 something years old. I didn't even think about politics. And so,
I agree.
to have, and so to have the youth be brought forward into that, and, I think to have a voice that represents, everyday Canadians from all walks of life. Like, one of my kids had a basketball tryout last night, and the amount of people being like, "Oh, bro, no, there's no way, brother, like, I love you, so much. Like, hey, we follow you." There's a woman who I actually opened the door in front of, and it kind of knocked her back, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. She looked like almost like a deer in headlights, and she was shocked, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I thought I heard her, and it was no, she couldn't believe it was me.
Oh
And
boy.
she's like, my husband and I follow you, and the husband's like, we can't believe you're here. And it's honestly, it's a weird thing. It's something I'm still not used to, being so recognized. And I never saw myself as a politician. I really do believe that, for people growing up, I think there's, different career paths that can ultimately lead you. And I think there's other learnings that could be done, because when you've only done politics, maybe your whole life, you might have, and you probably have an amazing set of skills. And truthfully, and I will be the first to say this, I think Pierre Poilievre is a freak of nature. I think he's like a once in a generation politician. I think he's so incredibly intelligent. He's the high performer that you would see succeed as a CEO, as a company, except he's in politics. And he is the absolute rare exception of what exists in the political world, where I truly believe that I think Canadians need to go out, be able to, experience different things, and then ultimately get into politics once they have a lot of, I would say, kind of life experience. And, maybe I'm at that point. And I honestly, I don't have a concrete answer for you, other than it continues to cross my mind, despite it being, I think, it's a no-win scenario for me, other than the only win that I would get, because I would become public enemy number one. I would be scrutinized so incredibly heavily. There would be a lot more negatives than any sort of positive that I could ever get from it. But if the positive that I could make could actually benefit and change the country, I will do it. And that's where I think, that there is the potential of it. But that's also a bigger conversation that I think needs to also happen with a Conservative Party, which I have not had, because I need to make sure that, that there is going to be a fit as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, like I said, I'm a firm believer of be the change you want to see in this world, and I kind of live every day, day by day, to that exact thing. Like, give that little smile to somebody in the street. You never know what their day is consisting of, so let's try and brighten up everybody's day. We'll see. Who knows what the future holds for Mario Zelaya? But I want to say, Mario, thanks for coming on the show. This is our end of the hour, and thanks for finding a slot for us during your busy days. It's a pleasure. I hope we can continue conversing more. If you got any other projects in the future going on, keep us posted. Let us know what's going on. But for coming on my show, I want to say thank you very much to my audience, guys. You get a gist. Mario is real. He's not just some other person that's been given information and he's just out there. He's a real guy. So I know there's a lot of people that were wondering, like, is this guy for real? Like, where's he getting the information from? I think we've basically touch base on that, guys. He's real. And he's just another concerned Canadian citizen out there trying to get the truth out there for each and every one of us. And you know, being his own civic duty as a citizen to inform the masses. So Mario, fantastic work. Don't give up, man. Don't give up. We love your content. We love everything you're doing. And once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot, Pat. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words.
Absolutely, buddy. All right. Well, take care. We'll talk to you again.
Okay. See ya.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. You want to do a quick close on that? Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mario Zelaya, the one and only, here on the Real Pat King Show. His schedule was very busy, so we had to do it virtual. This is one of our options that we have yet to play with in studio, so we're going to give this a shot. I think it went rather well. Not too much technical difficulties, so I'm glad it was able to accommodate. And I just went off screen. No camera. There we go. OBS. There we go. Anyways, this is the Real Pat King Show, and you guys did have a good chat. I didn't like that either. This is the Real Pat King Show. Tune in for more episodes. We are not going to stop. We are only going to get better. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can't wait to see you on the next episode. All right. Once again, you have been privy to another episode of the Real Pat King Show. Thank you for joining us, and let's just let you all know we are not stopping. We are moving forward, up and up. The sky's the limit, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. More episodes to come.
And I like that